Well, hi everybody. Welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and it's still light outside at 7 p.m. here in the East Coast, which is really a wonderful thing. I do appreciate that about daylight savings. Not so much getting up when it's dark out, but it is nice, and it was a beautiful day outside. I hope everybody had a chance to get outside and get some fresh air and enjoy the day. And it's Tuesday. That means it's Reading, Writing, and Ralph with our favorite literary editor, Ralph Peluso. Hi, Ralph. Welcome back.
Hi, Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Great. Like you, I got out in the sunshine. Played a round of golf early this morning when it was still a little bit foggy, but it was a lot fun because it wasn't cold and I didn't have to wear gloves.
Yeah. It's so pretty on the golf course early in the morning when that fog is lifting, and a lot of times by the turn, the fog is lifted. You can see a lot better, but it's so pretty in the morning.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful and it's quiet and peaceful.
Yeah.
And tonight's guest is a returning guest, and she was on just about a year ago. And
Great. I'm going to
can't
bring her up.
believe we've gone through a year.
I know it is crazy. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on the screen while you
Great.
are introducing her. Hi, Paige.
Yes. Hi, Paige. How are you doing? This is Paige Etheridge for those who have been with us for this 12 months and are loyal to a loyal fan base for us. Welcome back, Paige. Hit your comment button. Welcome her back. She's an exciting young author who recent book is a coming of age story written in a science fiction context and bordering on the mystical. So it's kind of sci-fi meets the mystical in the Amazon. Welcome, Paige. How are you?
I'm good. I also got to be outside with my dog today, and it was nice.
How is Athena?
She's good. She was misbehaving a little bit on our walk today, but overall she did pretty well.
Fabulous.
But she's been loving the weather too. She's definitely more of like a warm weather, sunny dog. She's exponentially happier during the spring and summer, I've noticed. And she's like me. We're just always outside hiking, always outside doing stuff together. So, which is really wonderful.
Great. I wanted you to give the audience a little bit more of your background because you've done so much stuff that I think the only thing you missed is being a grandmaster in chess. But you are Greek descent, I guess, Athens descent.
Yes. I have direct ancestry from Athens. Yes.
And you are a Taoist.
Mm-hmm.
And tell the audience what that means.
It's a philosophical view that, oh goodness, it's really hard to explain because it's like the idea is that if you define it, you're not actually saying it properly. But it's basically this idea that there's so many ways to describe it. It's like you kind of come in and out of reality and through like life and death. It's this idea of having a balance between like the yin and yang, good and dark. It's the idea of just having love for other people. It's just a really good philosophy to live by because it focuses on loving others, and it's also focused on understanding the differences and the ways that different views and realities and aspects like balance each other out. So I like it because it has promoted the idea of like understanding other people and understanding their views while also just keeping myself in a more peaceful place. So it's a really great philosophy to live by.
Right. Yep. And you're also a black belt.
Yes, that's actually my certificate over there. So
Have you ever had to use it?
I've been in situations where I was close. One time I was being followed down a dark road and I found a hammer on the ground and the person ran away. So that solved the problem. And we actually still had a snap-on hammer. For the most part, it's the idea of it's better to be a warrior and a gardener than a gardener in a war. A lot of times, martial arts will actually put you in situations that actually prevent you from being in danger in the first place.
Oh, that's
which
good.
Is good.
That
yeah,
is
sometimes
good.
it happens, but but a lot of times it's actually trains you to not get in those situations, which is good.
Right.
So.
and you're an
Like
avid.
I've actually been able to prevent fights by knowing how to fight. So
That's important. And
yeah.
you're an avid writer and an avid reader.
Yes.
How many
Yep.
books have you written now?
So this is my third completed, and I'm working on my fourth right now, which is set in
And it's not
India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Deals with nurture
good.
harm.
And you love to cook. What's your favorite thing to
Yes.
cook?
Oh goodness, I don't really know. I mean, I made pad thai for my birthday, and I absolutely loved it. I cook a lot of like Chinese, Thai, and a lot of Italian and Mexican food. Like, yeah. So I play around lots of different cuisines.
And you're currently obsessing on Witcher 3, I think.
Oh my goodness, I can't stop playing it. It's so much fun. I totally relate to it because it's like Geralt himself is kind of in the center of like all these like he has these magical aspects to him, but he's kind of more in the center of there's witches, there's mystical creatures, there's these stories about these different characters, there's this comic relief guy, there's these different situations that people ask of him, and I relate to that so strongly because I'm like in the center of like all these like ideas and people and situations that I'm just like, oh, okay.
So you've got such an eclectic background of things you've done and things you like to do, and and tell the audience how that blends into you writing your stories. This current story is very fascinating, and we're going to spend a bit of time going through it.
So the idea is that my characters are of different backgrounds, religions, beliefs, different struggles that they go through, different time periods. And I do whatever I can to immerse myself in that so I fully understand them and not just have the perception of like, oh, this is how I perceive this type of person to think. Like I really do the research and really push myself into it, especially since I've been around so many different kinds of things and people over the years. I really want to pay homage to that and do all that justice, because I do believe that everybody's point of view and opinions has a merit of some sort, and we need each other and we need all these different aspects to come together to create the more holistic world that we're all looking for. And then we're going to be basically moving on to new challenges after that. So with this particular book, I did a ton of research about Brazilian culture. I did a ton of research about the mythology behind the Amazon river dolphins. I did a ton of research about the science behind the Amazon river dolphins, because they're real dolphins. Just a matter of, are they were dolphins, which tons of the people in Brazil and Peru and in the Amazon river basin believe, yes, they are were dolphins.
And they are pink. We have photos to prove it.
Yes, they are pink. Which
I was kind of wondering. I was wondering about it when I first read it. I said, "Is this real? There's real pink dolphins?" And yes, there are.
Yes. Yep. So the concept was actually introduced to me when I was 8 years old. I saw an episode of The Wild Thornberrys, and the episode's actually called Only Child, and it actually features Amazon river dolphins and the Boto and Cantado were dolphin myth surrounding them. And I was fascinated immediately. I was like, I'm going to write a story about this at some point. Like, I was just so in love with the topic, even at 8 years old. And I was so enchanted by it.
Yes, and this is a picture that of the use of the dolphin in the Feast of St. John the Baptist, I guess, in Brazil. And tell me about the importance of why they're walking around with the pink dolphin in that festival, which is a Catholic festival.
So even with the introduction of Catholicism, a lot of the original animism beliefs have stayed in Brazil, particularly around the Amazon River Basin. And people in Brazil genuinely do believe that when they're out partying, that there's actually were dolphins partying with them in humanoid form. Because according to the mythos, Amazon river dolphins are literally party animals, and they love music, and they love dancing, and they love partying with humans. So,
and they take their and they take their form. They come out of the water and take the form of a young man, I guess. Guess it is, to walk
Men and
among them.
women.
Men and women.
Yeah,
Okay.
men and women.
Okay.
What they do is they'll wear a straw hat or some kind of hat on their head because the only part they can't completely transform is the blowhole.
Right.
So they have to hide that.
Ah.
So anybody who has a hat is under suspicion of possibly being were dolphin, but who knows? I mean, I have super long hair. I don't know. Maybe I could hide a blowhole down here. I mean, I think it'd be hard, but who knows?
I can't hide one. But anyway, that's going to lead us into our. No, I had one more question. You're also an avid rock fan. What
Yes.
what era of rock? Because I'm an avid rock fan, and I think of it as the 50s and 60s and 70s as classic rock. But what's your classic rock?
I'm more 80s to be perfectly honest, and a bit of 70s.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's good because it shows you that there's a meaning in there in about the 70s. So the first trivia question is, we're going to start the audience off with a simple one. Who danced for Saint John the Baptist prior to his beheading? No, that's way too easy. Everybody knows that's Salome, so we're not going to go with that one. They're already typing that in. The first question of the night really pertains to rock music. And which music star is credited to have songs that included the sound of whales for the first time? And it falls right into the rock era where we both blended, just to give you guys a hint. So, which music star is credited with the first songs to include whale sounds? So let's talk about the book now, because I went through it and I started writing notes as I always do, and I was thinking about there's a lot of metaphors in here, and the most overriding metaphor for me is that this book is essentially a metaphor on life, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
The Amazon River is literally the livelihood of the people that live around that basin, but also life brings with it death, inevitably. You don't know exactly when, you don't know exactly where, but the thing is that along the way you're given such experiences, gifts, riches, and all this different stuff. So the idea was, and also it's a coming of age story in that Luna is really opening up herself to actually experiencing what all life has to offer for the first time, while still essentially maintaining her identity despite all these different changes that she goes through. The reason that I picked the name Luna is the idea of the moon. And the moon is cold, it's off in the distance, it doesn't have a lot of connection to the outside world, or our world, I would say, not the outside world. And the idea is that later on, she's able to find a way to shed her light and life upon others, and also find a way to be seeing hey, I am actually connected. I mean, the moon is literally connected to the earth through gravity. So the idea of just coming of age, but then also finding a way to be yourself. And then the Amazon River being a focus is the idea of literal life. It comes with dangers, it comes with different experiences, it comes with different lessons, it comes with a lot of beauty, whether you see it or not. Mm-hmm. And it, again, ultimately comes with death. There's many deaths that we experience throughout our life as we change and grow, and then there's also the major death that comes, but then there's also that life that comes again in the form of new life that begins and whatever else might come.
Well, the new life for Luna begins to take shape when she meets Celeste, and she's being coerced, I guess is a good way to put it, into transformation to one of the pink dolphins. And to me, again, when I look at a metaphor, I started to look at what was going on between Luna and Celeste as a metaphor for marriage.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that? Yeah. Because go ahead.
What was interesting about when I actually got married, I had a lot of animalistic themes that I had around my marriage. For example, I had barn owls on my cake. Our sticker featured a Luna moth. There were butterflies everywhere. I mean, my grandmother loved talking about the butterflies around my wedding, and my grandpa loved talking about the butterflies around my wedding. And the thing is that there's like a death that occurs upon marriage, and it's transformation that occurs upon marriage, and all those different animals I researched later talked about that transformation, kind of mini death that happens along with marriage. And that's the reality. I mean, there's a big change that happens when you get married and you commit to someone like that. And same thing happened with Luna and Celeste. I mean, there was a big change that happened for both of them, and a big change that occurred in their transformation in order to be with each other. So.
Yeah, I think there's a part in there where you talk about going from the unknown to the unknown, which is kind of an
Yes.
interesting line. It was a little longer than that, but that's in reality what you were saying. And I had to think about that line for a second, and it was so true because you're leaving what you know, but your future is unknown, to now going and being part of someone else in a future that's unknown, right? And
Yeah, it's a gamble either way. It's just about a matter of like what feels right. And I think if you're so in love with somebody, you want to take the gamble on them regardless, and you want to take the gamble on the beautiful life that you can have with them.
right. The other thing that struck me, and again, it has to do with the analogy to marriage, is as honest as they both were, Celeste was never really fully honest. So it
No.
begs the question: is is there ever 100% open honesty in a marriage? The partners always have a hold card?
I think since we can't read each other's minds, I mean, Celeste was able to read minds to an extent. She couldn't completely read somebody's mind. She could only read like certain thoughts. And the idea is that I really do feel like you're never going to know exactly every single little thing that goes on in a person's head. And you're also not literally with them 24/7. So you're not going to literally be there for all their particular experiences either. So there's always going to be some kind of disconnect in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know, but you hope that
Yeah.
there's not always going to be a hold card. But um,
I don't
whenever
think
you
that there's
see,
necessarily, sorry, I don't think there's necessarily a sense of like a person has to feel like, oh, I have to have something in the hole in the case things go wrong, or a way to be, like one up this person. Like I don't believe that has to be like a factor.
I don't know if it's intentional or the fact that when you're going through life, you've got so many things that you've experienced that
Mm.
you just don't get around to telling them all. And then, you
Yeah.
know, and some are intentional, but again, you don't know as you go through it. The one of the other things here is that there's also a metaphor as to becoming an adult because of the
Yes.
changes that Celeste particularly was going through. So talk about that, how maturing as a woman, and how it's portrayed in your work.
So Luna goes through various transformations in that she literally becomes a were-dolphin. So she has her dolphin form, and then she still has a humanoid form that she can take on that's similar to her original appearance, but it isn't quite the same. So she's literally getting used to two new bodies that she's never had before. And she's also getting used to new abilities that she isn't used to. And she's also learning how to navigate her life in these two new physical forms, and also with these new abilities in her mind and the way that she thinks as well. And as we mature, we're capable of different mental thought and inquiry and things that we didn't really have the ability to do before, and our bodies do physically change as we get older. And there's things that we can do as we get older, and then there's things that we can't do as well as we get older. Our
Right.
bodies change whether we want to admit it or not. So I was playing around with the idea of what's it like to change but still be like the same individual inside through all those changes, because I think sometimes people like think that as I change I'm not going to be the same person anymore, and you find that you actually are. It's just that you have these kind of shifts that come along with it, that maybe you change your mind on something, or certain priorities change, or some things absolutely stay the same about you in that regard. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Let's check in with Susan to see if we've got a winner on the first question.
Okay, we actually, sorry, 1 second. Here we go. We actually do not have any guesses yet. I think this was a tough one, Ralph.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
maybe
Wow.
let's give them a couple more minutes. And everybody out there, the question again is, and it's on the. I'm going to put it on the screen. Um, it's in the comments box as well. But which music star is credited with the first songs to include whale sounds? Well, actually, we just have the correct answer.
Look at that.
Terry Mruz Etheridge
Oh,
looked it up and she came up with the correct answer. Maybe Judy Collins, she said, and that's correct. Terry, thank you so much
That
for
is
playing the game and congratulations.
correct.
thanks.
Oh, very good. Is that your sister-in-law or your
That's my mother, actually.
your mother? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay,
Great.
Mom.
Great. Yay. She got it. See, she's
Yep.
she's from the same rock genre as we are, so she had to know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to the human nature aspect of this, because when you go, beyond the changing, as you go through, as you adult and as you age, the other thing that was apparent was the perspective of how people view you and how you view them and the
Yeah.
superficiality of it all, right? Talk about that and how that played into the plot.
So what's interesting is that Luna views people through her anxiety, and that's a super closed off lens to view people because she never really got to see them for what they really were. It was just more of, is this person a potential threat to me? Is this person going to embarrass me? How do I basically get out of the situation as soon as possible? And that was her own superficial thoughts that she had based on what she was experiencing. And then even when she went to the Amazon and she changed, I mean, she still looked human when she wanted to, but she also was like a were-dolphin, and she also had these new abilities that she never had experienced before. And then when she did go into town in her humanoid form, people couldn't tell that she was a dolphin or a were-dolphin in humanoid form. Like she people
Yeah, how
were
could you
treating her
tell? Except she had the
as
higher
she could
head.
be human essentially. So yeah, I mean, there's so much more going on. I mean, so you find out that the jaguar is a were-jaguar. You find out Celeste was not always a were-dolphin. She had other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, people's stories and these stories of individual lives, and I'm not even just talking about humans, are so much deeper and more complex than we can ever know.
So again, when I was reading that, what struck me about that is it reeked of being in the corporate world, because you never knew if you were looking at a prey or predator. You never knew if you were looking at a jaguar or a mockingbird. You just never knew, because for the most part, people hid who they were, right?
Yes.
To accomplish a goal. And I thought that was very clever, if that's what you intended. But let me get to the second trivia question, and then we'll talk about a few more angles on the book. The second trivia question of the night. Okay, get ready out there. Remember, it's the first one in with the correct answer. We've already got one winner out there. In the Southern Vampire novels, which were made into a TV series called True Blood, it's got both a coming of age context and a lot of religious context. But there are three mythical creatures at the center of this. Name those three creatures. Right? This is the easiest of the three trivia questions. But so let's talk about one thing that came up, and I wasn't quite sure what it was all about. When you say there was, I think it had to do with the unfamiliarity with the new environment, and and I wrote ghosts because everybody carried some part of the past with them, and I think it had to do with Luana. Is that the first girl that was
Yes.
killed? Yes, and it had to do with Luana. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Celeste is carrying around the ghost of Luana, and then you have Luna, who's carrying around the ghost through the tooth that she wears, of oh my goodness, I forgot my own character's name.
The dolphin she found on the beach. Yeah.
Yes, Celeste, I think it was named after a comet. How do I forget my own character's name? That's crazy.
Aries.
Ceres, yeah, Ceres is based on the comet. Thank you
Yeah.
for reminding me. Oh my goodness, that was so embarrassing.
I read the book.
So they're carrying around like literal ghosts of the past, but in different ways. So for Celeste, she's carrying around Luana's ghost in the sense of feeling guilt of this is a child that I was supposed to raise and wouldn't have even needed to raise that long because dolphins mature much more quickly than humans do. And this is somebody who I could have like taken care of and basically done some good in the world, and basically losing out on that, and then also feeling like she failed the mother who she'd been involved with as well. And in the sense of Luna, she's carrying around the ghost of this individual who she never even met when they were alive. I mean, she came upon their corpse, took a tooth, and that was it. I mean, but she still felt like a connection to this individual who had died, even though she never knew them in life. And this individual actually ended up like pushing a lot of her decisions that time on, up until the final departure, which was really interesting. And as a play on how much did the dead influence the living, which we don't really know the answer to that. So
No, it doesn't. It's a very fascinating because, when you think about it in context of literature, you've got Ibsen, right? And he wrote all about in his famous play Ghosts, right, where you live with the sins of your forefathers in a lot of different ways, and you almost had that same kind of concept going on here with Celeste and what she was carrying about Luana. The two things in closing this section of the discussion. One, what were your thoughts as why Celeste was in such a rush to complete Luna's transformation?
because she knew that Luna was ultimately going to stay, and she knew that Luna had an exponentially higher chance of surviving as a were-dolphin than as a human. Because it's really easy to die in the Amazon, even if you know the Amazon really well. Weather changes so fast. You have all these different creatures that can easily kill you, all these different plants that can easily kill you. The terrain can easily kill you. The river itself can easily kill you. And then there's also the dangers of the people there, not even just poachers, but just other people doing whatever there. I mean, it's really
Right,
scary.
the humans, yeah.
And then on top of that, if you're looking at it from a fantasy sci-fi point of view, you have like the paranormal aspects that can kill you. So you want to be in a position where you can handle all of that?
I guess that's a good point. She was trying to help her, but you wonder if she was in such a rush. I always was waiting for the other shoe for the reason to why she was doing this. And the last thing was the Lilith Celeste confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
Again, describe your thoughts about that, because that was a pressure cooker building,
Yeah.
and it was great the way it was done. So talk about that for a minute.
Oh, thank you. So, in Luna's case, she was literally finally facing her anxiety in a personified form and was able to stand up for herself. And for Celeste, it was about basically taking herself back, because this Lilith had basically taken her away from herself and basically forced her into a life that she never consented to. And it was a way of her basically just taking herself back and basically getting away from the person that was basically still trying to mess with her and ruin the new life that she was trying to build for herself.
Right.
So she's never going to be able to get her old life back entirely, but she's going to be able to build a new one.
Yeah, that was a very fascinating sequence between those two and the interaction. Let's check in with Susan and see if we've got a winner on the second question yet.
We do have a winner. It was a little bit of a combined win, but we have a clear winner, and that is Rebecca Downs Goldberg. So congratulations, Rebecca Downs
Rebecca.
Goldberg.
Hi, Rebecca.
Good to see you on there. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing? Type in a comment. Let us know how you're doing, Rebecca.
Yeah, your mom had a couple of the correct answers in there, but your mom had first said fairies, but Rebecca came in with the vampires and the werewolves, which, as I guess, A shapeshifter is also,
Yeah.
So congratulations, Rebecca. You win a book.
Great. Good. So we're going to get into the third part here, which is we're going to talk about coming of age novels and movies and see who does it better, the sci-fi writers or the traditional writers. But the third trivia question has to do with the coming of age novel, which was the classic for all high school students my age and a little bit beyond, but way before. Catcher in the Rye, and it was written by J.D. Salinger. So, and in what year did he first publish the Catcher in the Rye stories? Okay, let's see who's on their toes out there. So let's talk about teen movies coming of age, and there's lots of them out there to choose from Pretty in Pink to a whole bunch of other stuff, or coming of age as a sci-fi. And the first one we'll talk about is it's considered one of the best sci-fi movies that depicts coming of age. It's called The Rite of Passage, and it basically goes through teens that or preteens that when they reach puberty, they're sent out to go through a series of trials. If they survive, they get to, stay in the colony and live. So I don't know if you know much about that one, but what are your thoughts on that as another sci-fi writer?
I think that there are people who do fail to go through the passage into adulthood. And that's a reality that I don't think we really discuss or face all the time. Or like face in conversation, I would say. I mean, obviously it happens. And the thing is that you're entering one world and which is totally different than the world that you experienced previously, and you have to figure all these different things out, essentially. So, I mean, it's totally relevant to anyone's life.
It's a good point. And I'm going to take it to the next one, which is a teen movie classic. I think most of us have seen it. It's The Breakfast Club, mm-hmm. which is a coming of age movie, and you've got some good perspective on that. So why don't you talk about The Breakfast Club for a second?
So it's different kinds of people who live different kinds of lives, and you can even say they live in their own different universes coming together and having this connection with each other and finding places where they share experiences and places where their experiences are different and that they can actually connect and understand each other for the first time. It also has that 80s vibe, and my book is set in the 80s, so I absolutely adored that connection. And just the importance of, if you really want to be successful in going through adulthood and really entering into the world fully, you're going to need to be able to be around different kinds of people. You're going to need to be able to connect with different people and try to understand their perspective and really listen well and really find ways to connect with others. And you need to understand that regardless of your interaction with that person, they're always going to be their own universe, and they're always going to have different views from you, and places where you also have similar views as well.
Yeah, when you think about Breakfast Club and you think about Catcher in the Rye and you think about The Rite of Passage, you think about your book, you think about Twilight. There's three kind of central themes that you go through: angst, alienation, and superficiality, right? And that's what teens struggle with, if I can simplify it to three terms. To me, when I see what folks like you have done with taking those topics and putting them into a novel with a different perspective, where how you've written and how you've portrayed that difficult period and those difficult changes is easier to get the starkness of what's happening as you're a teenager growing up than reading it or seeing it in The Breakfast Club, maybe, or in The Catcher of the Rye, because the visualization is just so steeper, right? When you're right, you put it in the context of a were-dolphin, right? What are your thoughts?
We go through such weird transitions as we're getting older, and I remember my brain was doing all kinds of really weird things that felt dark and strange, and what is this, and oh, is this normal, or am I okay? What is this strange world that I'm experiencing in my head? And then physically you go through these changes where you're like, what is this? What's happening to me? Why does this look like that? Why does this feel like that? And you see that with Luna as she's experiencing her new mind and her new body, and she goes, "Why is this happening? Why did I wake up with a tail, but the rest of me still looks like this? How do I fix this? I can't
Yeah,
move."
you know,
And
men.
we go through these different experiences, and we're like, "How are we going to survive this? How are we going to handle it?"
Excellent. You know, you're so right on. And when you do it in the terms of a dolphin, and you think about then comparing that to a woman, or even the changes that a man goes through, um, you know, and what happens to your body, what happens to your emotions. Again, when you put it in a flat, it's the difference between a monochrome and Kodachrome, right?
Yes.
Or one dimension and two dimension. The sci-fi writers can put those feelings into a three-dimensional environment, in my perspective. Whereas the classic writers, it's tough to do that, right? So the writing styles have changed, and I think they portray and do a better job of dealing with emotions. And I think it's tough for, you know, I think a lot of the viewers for the Zebra, you know, my age, not so much your age, and it's tougher to get your arms around that when you read it for the first time. But the more time you spend seeing or reading um, these kind of novels, whether it be Twilight, whether it be the Stackhouse novels, um, you get so much inside of the head of the person going through the changes, then you can really get a feel for it, right? Even when you take Suki, I love that name, Suki. Even when you take
Yes.
Suki Stackhouse and watch the changes she goes through several times, and you get a sense of this was a, you know, kind of a sheltered little girl, and now she's going, you know, dating vampires and werewolves. I mean, come on.
Oh, she goes for a ride, that one. It's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely nuts. But you do get a sense of the energy that's going into that, and the draining effect
Yes.
it has on a person as they go through those kind of changes. Right?
And I also think too that a lot of these sci-fi fantasy themes, especially the sci-fi themes, are going to become more of a reality. I mean, think about, I mean, the classic Star Trek example of like, oh, they predicted cell phones. Um, and the idea is that I think a lot of these things are going to become more of a reality as time goes on. I mean, I think humans are going to continue to evolve, and I very well see the fact that we're probably are going to have mind reading humans at some point. We already have mentalists, we already have intuitives. So I definitely can see eventually people being able to read minds. I see the ability of people being able to shapeshift in some form physically. I mean, I definitely can see like all that definitely happening. I don't know how far in the future, but and even with
Well,
technology changing, I mean, there's new technology we're going to be taking on as well.
yeah. I mean,
So
if you look at the M. Night Shyamalan stuff and the physical changes that his characters go through in that whole series with Split um, and you know, and changing in the mental disorder around schizophrenia, right? Can people really affect their body to change its format while they're changing it mentally, right? It's tough. He's
yeah.
probably right to some degree. Do we have a winner on that third question yet?
We don't have a winner. We had a couple of guesses. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we have a couple of people that are getting close, but we don't have a winner yet. So maybe
1951 is not the right answer. It's the
correct.
first time that the stories were published, and it's not 1951. That's when the novel came out.
And somebody also guessed. Oh, I may have written that question wrong then because I said what year
Yeah, I
was
know. I
it
just read it
initially
when it came
published.
across the
Sorry about
screen. Yeah,
that.
that's
So
okay.
repeat the question again, Ralph, please.
The question is, in what year did J.D. Salinger first publish The Catcher in the Rye stories? It's the
Okay.
novel came out in 51.
Terrific. Let's give him another couple of minutes to come up with the
Yeah,
answer.
I want to ask Paige, what's next? I mean, you're so creative and so talented. What's next? Where do you go from here?
So I actually had an originally was going to go in a completely different direction for my next book that I'm not even going to mention, because what ended up happening was I had this vivid dream about this Indian woman who just was so powerful and strong, and then I saw this hardcover book that was red and green before me, and basically this was like, oh, yeah, this is the book that you're going to write, and it's going to be about me. And I was so in awe when I woke up, and I was like, that is a sign that I cannot reject. And I went in a completely different direction. So I did research and found out that this was Nur Jahan, who she was the only empress of the Mughal Empire. And the book is set in her travels between India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And then it's going to be a historical fantasy, because a lot of what we know about Khan is based on her legend. It isn't even stuff that's really factual. So I'm playing around with the idea that we're not in control of the legends and the stories and the ways that people remember us. And also just there's these fantasy aspects that kind of know that like we need help in order to create like our best selves, and also to be like this big hero that we want to be. And then without that we fall apart, whether you want to view that as however you want to view that. So it's really long. It's going to take me a while to finish. It could be years, so that's daunting. It's the longest book I've ever written, because you've seen my books. They're on the shorter side. This is big. This is huge.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a big book.
Your books so far have been compact, but yeah, taking on a historical novel like that is tricky, because you have to really research the settings and everything and make sure that they're accurate, so you don't lose the suspension of disbelief by the audience. So
Yeah,
it's a little bit trickier. The sci-fi, where you're creating something, as long as you're consistent in what your format is, it works really fine. But that's quite an undertaking, and I wish you well. How's your husband doing? I know he serves us, right? He's still in the police force?
Yep, he's doing well. He's just doing his thing. He made us breakfast yesterday. That was nice.
Good. Good.
Yeah, he's just been enjoying. He's a gamer like me, so he's been enjoying stuff like that with me as well. So
we thank him for his service to the community.
Thank you.
Do we have a winner for that third question yet?
We do. Actually, Terry Mers, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Etheridge won. She said 1945-46 is when the stories were first published. So, and I believe the correct answer was 45.
Correct. 45.
Yes.
Right.
Congratulations.
She teaches this book. So yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the first show in a very long time where neither Kelly, Michelle, or Nancy have won.
They must all be out shopping or something.
It's too nice a day.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. It's wonderful, and we're so happy to see some new names in here. Not that we don't love the people that watch the show all the time, but we love seeing the new names too. Thank you so much for playing, Terry.
Yeah, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We enjoy the audience participation part. Paige, you've been a spectacular guest as always.
Thank you.
I wish you continued success with your writings, and when you get that, hope it doesn't take 4 years, because get you back in 4 years. That's a long time.
Oh no, I didn't say. Oh goodness. You think it's?
How many did you say?
I just said years. I don't know how long.
Well, okay, make it less than that.
Okay.
But thank you for coming on, and it's always a pleasure to see you. My best to your husband, your family.
Thank you.
And have fun with that dog. Now,
I always do.
We have a special episode of Reading, Writing, and Ralph coming up with Amy Shira Teitel, and she's written a novel about two female astronauts fighting for their place in space. And Amy is a noted space historian as well as a YouTube superstar. So we will have her on a week from tomorrow. So it'll be March 31st. And it's being done on that date in honor of closing out Women's History Month. So we welcome her to Reading and Ralph on March 31st. So that will be it's another exciting show. And 2 weeks from today, I believe we have Irene Wittig in All That Lingers, a fascinating World War II novel. And she's done a very creative job with the backdrop and everything else. It's quite a tale, and I look forward to having her on. So we've got some very exciting guests coming on, and I'm always so happy because I love hearing the authors get on and tell their stories. It's we have so many great writers emerging, and it's just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much, Ralph. And Paige, what a pleasure to have you back on the show. Please come back, no matter how long it takes you to finish that book, but I bet you'll be done sooner than you think. So,
Yes, you will. Great,
yeah,
Paige.
but and good
to see you.
Camp NaNoWriMo is coming in April, so I'm hopeful because that'll help me.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Terrific. All right.
Don't
Well,
rush
thank
it.
you.
It'll be great. See
Okay.
you
Well,
a week from tomorrow.
that's right. We'll see you a week from tomorrow. Thank you. Okay. Good night,
Great.
Paige. Good night, Ralph. Okay, that is going to do it for another edition of ZTV Live. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for participating and giving us your input and your answering the questions. Tune in tomorrow night. It's at 7 p.m. for Wellness Wednesday. Dr. Lauren Fisher welcomes Sanda Vandergroot of Mind the Mat Yoga and Pilates, and she'll be talking a lot about wellness of body and how that nurtures the mind and soul. That's going to be a wonderful talk. I'm really looking forward to that tomorrow night. And then Thursday night, we have our Alexandria Makers Market with Elisa Kovac. Will be doing her dinner in DIY with the beautiful pots and bonsai trees with Stephen Lally. So please tune in. There's dinner in DIY if you want to go online and order your dinner at Augie's Muscle House. And then, so dinner will be taken care of. You pick it up, bring it home, and you plant the bonsai tree in the beautiful pots. So Grace Arnold will be here hosting that show. So we look forward to it. And thank you so much again for tuning in tonight. And remember, as much as you can, to be the good news in someone's life.